kids, Tiffanys content. On this day, September 21st, in 1938, the most powerful and destructive hurricane in recorded history struck Long Island in southern New England. Recorded as a Category 5 with 160 miles per hour. See, this is why we share, for everybody to be safe. Let's watch.
A West Indian hurricane slashes the North Atlantic coast. A huge tidal wave rolled in with a 100-mile-an-hour blast of the tropical storm. This is Providence, Rhode Island. Almost unheard of for an equatorial hurricane to sweep and rage so far north as Canada. So here you see the almost incredible, a hurricane in New England. Putnam, Connecticut, the flood that came with the tempest. There have been 5 days of rain when the hurricane blew, fury of the wind accompanied by a tremendous downpour. The Quinebaug River in Massachusetts. Streams turned into torrents, pour into rivers which burst their banks. Flood damage everywhere. The havoc of water added to destruction by wind. Disaster to bridges. The power of water swept away the whole section of this bridge. Railroad tracks washed out. Glastonbury, Connecticut. The church steeple blew down. The storm devastated towns cut off from the outside world. Telephone and telegraph wires flattened. Communications down everywhere. Hartford, Connecticut. The telephone company says the hurricane caused the greatest damage to communications in telephone history. Telephone building flooded. Communities isolated. So for a long time, hurricane episodes remained unknown until the delayed stories came through as lines were repaired. Port Washington, Long Island. Millionaire station for palatial yachts. Not so palatial now, these yachts. Ripped from anchorage by the terrific wind and hurled inland. Hurled right across the highway. Greenport, Long Island, a fashionable shore resort. Fallen trees and telephone poles and smashed automobiles. Shore resorts suffered the most. West Hampton, Long Island. There, a fashionable and exclusive colony called the Dunes lies utterly destroyed. Millionaire cottages swept out to sea, others blown into wreckage and debris. The hurricane hit towns never built to withstand the blast of tropical hurricanes. In southern lands, they build for hurricanes. But why should they here? Whoever expected that the wind demon of the West Indies would strike so far north? New London, Connecticut, on fire. Buildings wrecked by the wind, and flames broke out. With the devastation of wind and water is added the ravage of fire. That steel girder, softened and bent by the tremendous heat. The hurricane caused loss of lives by the hundreds and damage in the hundreds of millions. Catastrophe as complete as unexpected. Havoc to boats and shipping is fantastic. Vessels hurled ashore in crazy confusion. Nightmare scenes in the wake of a freak of nature. A West Indian hurricane on northern shores. Ship on the railroad track.
Diary of Chief Nancy Allen, the only female fire chief in the country at the time. She documented the storm dubbed the worst in the history of Rhode Island.
I didn't realize it was a hurricane. In fact, I didn't even know what a hurricane was. We had no idea because we didn't have news like we do now.
We spoke to residents of Aldersbridge communities in East Providence. Those who lived through the storm remember the wind and storm surge.
And I see the water coming up more and more and more. The more I watched, I see these trees coming down.
13 feet of water flooded Providence and winds gusted to 125 miles an hour in the city. Douglas Dean, like everyone else, had just gotten out of school. He had vivid memories of watching the Providence River from his house in East Providence.
Boats being thrown up on shore, off the river.
Joy Millard was delivering papers with her brother in Providence when the sky was threatening.
Took the remaining papers from me and said, get back home as fast as you can, just as the tree came down.
Helen Cruz lived in Seacock where the winds were howling.
And nearly every oak tree went, so that it was weeks before we could travel on Fall River Avenue.
The hurricane of 38 took everyone by surprise. The images from 80 years ago may come to life again, but thanks to modern technology, more people will stay safe when that happens.
They have warnings, and now I think everybody knows.
The technology today, there's so many possibilities to save hundreds of lives. This is why we share. It's Tiffanys content. Like, share, subscribe.